You've seen the best.
You've seen the worst.
Now here's the rest of both worlds.
I'm GayFesh, and if you encounter any holes, steer clear.
And I'm Ari, and let's launch a probe into it.
And today we will be discussing the Star Trek The Next Generation episodes The Child and Where Silence Has Lease. So the Batman's coming out soon.
I know, I feel like we've been waiting for this movie for so long, and I'm so ready for it.
I've been waiting for it since Ben Affleck was going to direct it.
And star in it.
Yeah. It's Matt Reeves is directing, right?
I believe so. Didn't it change, or am I thinking of a different movie?
I don't know what movie you'd be thinking of, but
Okay.
Matt Reeves, he did the monkey movies. He did the Planet of the Apes trilogy, which were far better than they had any right to be.
Any right to be. I have watched that first one with John Lithgow way too many times. I really liked that movie. It was just fun.
I think the second one, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, was probably one of the best war movies I'd ever seen. Mm-hmm. It's a movie where you have a monkey guns akimbo on a horse, which should be the stupidest thing, but I'm just sitting here like, no, why can't you all just understand each other and not fight?
I know. I loved it.
So I'm looking forward to seeing his take on the Batman.
I'm interested to see Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Selena. I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm not super sold on the Riddler design. He just looks like a dude.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he takes off that like big overcoat and it turns out he actually does have the classic Riddler outfit or some variant thereof.
I think they might be playing off of the Gotham thing because I noticed when I was in the Funko headquarters store yesterday and they have some of the Batman figures out already and they don't call him the Riddler or anything. They're calling him by his name.
Edward Nygma, right?
Enigma.
Yeah.
And same thing with Oswald Cobblepot. So I don't know. I have only watched.
Oh, is he in it?
Apparently, because there's a pop figure of him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know the movie's going to be like 3 hours, so there's going to be, a lot of Batman to have.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
Actually, when they cast Robert Pattinson as Batman, I was a little hesitant. I haven't seen him in a lot. And what I have seen him in was Harry Potter and Twilight. So I hadn't seen much of his other work since then, but I understand he's done a lot of indie stuff and he's a better actor than the movies that he was in. So
I agree, yeah, because I don't even think he was all that bad as Cedric. Like I liked him as Cedric Diggory, I don't know. And when people were like losing their minds about him being cast, I was like, yeah, but everybody loses their minds about every Batman that gets cast.
I laughed my ass off when Ben Affleck was cast. I thought that was the funniest thing I had ever heard in my life. And now I think he's one of my favorite Batmans.
He is my favorite Batman. I can openly admit it.
I don't even like those movies, but I like him as Batman.
Because I have had this thing since I've been watching. So I have been watching, but even before I was into comic books, I was watching Batman. Much like I watched the original series, I watched the original Batman show with my mom because she really liked it. And so once the movie started coming out in the 90s and stuff, I really liked it. But I've always felt like one actor could do Batman really well, but they wouldn't do Bruce very well. And you know what Affleck did? He did both. He was a very good Bats and he was a very good Bruce. And that made me happy. And I think Robert Pattinson can probably pull that off too, but we'll have to wait and see.
I think what sold me on the film in the trailer, it was a subtle thing. It showed me that Matt Reeves cared about it. Mm-hmm. And that he cared about it made me be like, okay, but it was the shot where he's got the cowl off and he has the grease paint around his eyes. Because every single Batman wears black mascara so that their skin doesn't pop out from the eye holes and it's just the eyes. But every single movie, when they take off that cowl, the eyeliner magically disappears and it's just no makeup. And I'm like, no, that's wrong. He should look like Ollie Queen from season 1 of Arrow. He should have the grease paint on there.
Yeah. Did you like the original, or not the original, but the last trilogy that we got, the Batman Begins trilogy?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean,
everybody likes them.
I thought the third one kind of didn't stick the landing.
Yeah.
But The Dark Knight is still like the gold standard for comic book movies.
Dark Knight is very good. I didn't like the first or the third, but I liked Dark Knight. I didn't like the first. It's 3 different movies in one, Like, it's too long. There's these long bits where you go away and then you come back and then plots come back. I don't know. I couldn't get into Batman Begins, and then I got into Dark Knight, and then I was a little bit disappointed by the third one. Like, I think everybody was, you know?
Yeah. The Dark Knight works, though, as a standalone film. Like, if you haven't seen Batman Begins, you're fine. You can just go in and go, okay, he's Batman. I know who Batman is. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, because of that, I'm really excited to see where this new series goes. I'm a huge DC fangirl. I have been since before the MCU existed. The MCU pulled me into the Marvel fandom, and now I'm a giant Marvel fan, too. But I wasn't until the MCU started happening, because I kind of had taken the DC side of the DC versus Marvel fight.
Yeah, I don't really get the fandom rivalries. Like, I like both DC and Marvel.
I don't either.
Like to me, as a kid, the fandom rivalry ostensibly was Star Wars versus Star Trek, but I liked them both. I'm like, why do I have to pick? I mean, if I have to pick, I'm picking Star Trek.
Right. Just
because there's more of it and I'm more invested in it, but I like both. I don't want to have to say one's better than the other.
Why should you have to? Why, if you like one thing, should you have to hate the other thing? That's how I feel about DC versus Marvel or Star Wars versus Star Trek or any of them, really. Like, why do you have to hate the other thing just because you like the one thing, you know?
Let people like what they like and let more media be made. That's good for all of us.
Exactly. So today we're going to talk about The Child, which is the first episode of season 2. It first aired on the 21st of November, 1988. That's a really late start date for a fall start show. Written by Jaron Summers and John Pavil and Maurice Hurley, and it was directed by Rob Bowman.
The cinematography is kicked up a notch.
Oh my goodness, so much. Yeah. Like, I wrote in my notes, they're showing off their bigger budget. Like, because they had that whole opening shot with, like, coming into the spaceport or whatever they were doing with, like, all the different ships and stuff. I don't know. I was like, wow, look at them. They got more money.
Yeah, they're showing off. The engineering set looks a lot better. It's got a lot more, like, dynamic lighting. The sound design and engineering is better. You hear the engine thrum a lot more. And now Geordi is the chief engineer, and he's sporting the gold outfit, and he's got a full second pip, so he's full lieutenant now.
Oh, I didn't notice the pips. That's a good catch, because I did not catch the pips.
And now that Geordi's chief engineer, we don't have to keep cycling through them, and we get more use of the engineering set, because that's a great looking set.
He does have big pants to fill. I mean, Argyle was one of my favorite characters.
Argyle did have the distinction of being chief engineer in like 2 episodes. Like,
and then mentioned in a third, I think.
I know.
So the plot here was pretty simple, right? Deanna gets pregnant by a sparkly alien. They have to pick up some plague samples, and then the plague samples keep growing and they can't figure out why, and it turns out it's Deanna's baby.
Yeah, that's pretty much
that's the plot, right? I felt like the plot wasn't really there to be a plot in this one. It was more like, here we are, we're back for season 2, let's show you what we're gonna do.
And let's talk about other changes. So Worf is also spotting the gold uniform.
Oh, I had not tracked that his uniform color changed. I was too busy staring
at his new bandolier,
at his scarf thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that got a massive upgrade. It's now like a chain mesh instead of just a fabric.
I think it looks better. I think it was just a big like, oh my god, that's different.
Yeah, there's a lot more gold on the show now, but also a big change is Riker's got the beard.
I know. I wrote in all capitals, and it took up 2 lines of my notebook. It says the beard. I was so excited, and then when I saw him with the beard, I was like, okay, maybe Riker was giving me small feelings before, but I might be having more feelings for
It's a good look
Riker
for him.
now. It is.
Also, it's funny, just in the first episode, I'm noticing, I'm like, it's not filled out yet, because he only grew it like during the 3-month break between seasons, and then because he got lazy, and he was just like, I don't have to film, I'm not going to shave. Then he came back for like rehearsals, and Gene's like, keep that. Let's give you a navel cut.
I think he looks much better. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think it just makes him look older and like a little bit more
authoritative.
Like he's a second in command of a starship. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wesley's sweater changed. into a half sweater shoulder pads. What are we calling that look?
I want to call that the acting ensign uniform. He's got a comm badge now too.
Yeah, he didn't before, right?
Yeah, I don't think he had one before, but did you notice the comm badge also is silver, not gold?
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah, so he's got his whole thing. Other changes, we have a new doctor, and I did not warn you about that.
You did not, and I hate her so much. How long is she around? Please tell me she's going soon, because she's got to be evil.
She's only here for a season.
Oh no, the whole season?
She's here for the season.
Does Bev come back? Or
yes,
am I no Beverly for all of second season?
For all of second season, you are no Beverly.
Ah!
And yeah. See.
Oh, God. You don't understand. My notes are full of hate for this doctor.
I deliberately chose to withhold that from you because you told me your 3 favorite characters were Wesley, Tasha, and Beverly. And I'm like, well, God. I've already told you that Wesley and Tasha leave the show at some point. So if I tell you that Beverly's gone, you're just going to quit the podcast.
I think it just like physically hurts. Like my chest hurts. Like a whole season? Okay. But at least they gave me Whoopi Goldberg, and I am in love with that character. I am like, Guinan, the second she started talking, I was like, oh my gosh, I love her. And then the advice she gives Wesley. We'll talk about that when we get to that part. But if I have to lose Bev, at least I got. Is it pronounced Guinan?
Guinan, yeah.
I got Guinan. Yeah, I love her so far. Do you think it's a part of Wesley's like contract that he has to have a sweater in some shape or form into his outfit, that he has those weird shoulder pads? Like he always has to have like knitted material of some sort on his uniform at all times. It's weird that he's the only one that has that like sweater material built into his uniform.
Actually, it's the pleated sweater top that he's got. That's kind of the design that they go with for like the TNG movies.
Okay.
You know, the gray top with the colored undershirt. Yeah, it looks very similar to that. I'm wondering if they took his shirt as a design.
Maybe they did. So does that mean the rainbow sweater's gone forever, and now he's always going to be wearing that grayish blue outfit?
The rainbow sweater, I think, was only in season 1. At some point, he's going to just switch to a regular Starfleet uniform.
Right.
But I think for this one, he's,
R.I.P. rainbow sweater.
And then we've got Dr. Pulaski, who I know you hate, and that's a pretty common opinion held among Star Trek fans. A lot of them do not like her. The way I see it is, Beverly's coming back. So
yeah, if that was it and Gates McFadden was just gone, I would be very upset.
So knowing that she comes back, instead of spending the whole season just hating Pulaski, give her a chance.
Okay, because I kept expecting her to be the evil in every episode.
Treat her as a guest star. There are issues that I have with her character. She's very obviously supposed to be a female Bones.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Got that ornery attitude to her, and they're trying to set up a Spock-Bones rivalry between her and Data that never works because
she's rude.
Well, Bones was rude, but in the original series, Spock gave as good as he got. Like when Bones was rude, Spock was rude right back. Like they had a friendly ribbing of each other. But when Pulaski treats Data as an it and mispronounces his name, and when he corrects her on the pronunciation of his name, she's like, "Oh, do you have a bruised ego?" It just comes across as bullying. It comes across
like she is enjoying that she hurt this android's feelings. Yeah. I know. Yeah, I know. But I will try to give her a chance, knowing that Bev is coming back, because if she's going to be here for the whole season, I don't want to just hate her every second she's on the screen.
You won't have a fun time if you do that.
Yeah.
The actress for her, Diana Muldaur, was actually on a couple episodes of the original series. I'm pretty sure she smooched Kirk.
Oh.
Yeah, she's one of the first TOS actors to come back for The Next Generation. I think we really only have a few of those. I mean, we had McCoy come back.
And there was that very old ensign lady.
Yeah, but there's not a whole lot of crossover. I mean, we have other original series characters making cameo appearances later in the series, but not a lot. So she's basically like, yeah, I was on the original series. Now I'm here.
Speaking of the original series, isn't the computer Nurse Chapel?
Yes.
How come it was a man at one point in this?
I noticed
that.
Yeah, when they were in the cargo bay working on the virus containment module, there was a male voice, and that was the only time I can think of that the Enterprise computer had a male voice.
Well, it took me off guard because I was like, "What?"
Maybe the cargo bay operator just changed his personal settings.
Like when you choose British male or British female and all your friends are in your car and Siri's like, turn left at the next.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no reason that the Enterprise voice has to be one specific voice. It's like Alexa, she can change.
Well, I mean, if Bev's got to be gone, this is just something I remembered. At least she's like head of Starfleet Medical. I was glad she got this huge, like, promotion up into something cool. I just wanted to say that while I'm hating on Pulaski.
I would like to redirect your hatred from Pulaski to the people who actually deserve it for Beverly not being here this season.
Okay, so what is the reason?
Gates McFadden was fired at the end of season 1.
What?
And the reason that the producers gave was that she was difficult to work with. And by difficult to work with, they mean her acting experience to that point had been mostly in theater. And working in theater, everyone is used to voicing their opinions on things.
Right.
And collaborating. And so she just thought that she was going to get to do that here. And people did not really like that a woman was having opinions on a set.
So they fired her for no reason. And then obviously realized their mistake and bring her back.
Yeah.
All right. Another change that I saw was that Deanna's hair was down in both episodes in the pretty way that I really like when it's down and curly, instead of up in the top bun or whatever.
Yeah, I think that was just a season 1 hairdo.
Good, because I think she looks a lot more natural with this hair. You know,
I'm a guy, so I don't have a strong memory for hairdos.
So then you don't want to talk about how I think her makeup also changed? Because I think the way they did her makeup slightly changed. She looked softer in the face, but I thought maybe they were doing that because they were trying to make her out to be a mother.
Right, giving her the motherly glow.
Oh, so I noticed something in this episode.
Yeah.
There's a producer on the show named Burton Armis.
Burton Armis.
Armis killed Tasha Yar.
Huh.
Yeah, I forgot. I was gonna text you and I forgot to text it to you. But it was on both of these episodes. It said producer blah blah Burton Armis, and I tend to read the titles when they're running, but I'm also usually taking notes when I'm watching Star Trek, so I don't know if he's new or not. But I was like, well, that seems like a weird coincidence.
The name rings 0 bells to me, so. Your guess is as good as mine.
I was pretty excited when I saw that. I was like, haha, now we know who really killed Tasha. So the scene where I called it a Wisty because it looked like a Wisty again, like the other thing from last season. But so at the very beginning, the Wisty is like flying around the ship and then goes into Deanna's room and impregnates her. And it really reminded me of that scene from Star Wars Episode 2 where Natalie, or I guess Queen Amidala, is sleeping in the other room. And it's a trap that Anakin thinks he's set for the bounty hunters. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like his head turns and he looks, and then Obi-Wan's like, I sense it too. Like that. Yeah. It really reminded me of that scene a lot. And I wondered if like Lucas did that on purpose or not, but I thought it was funny.
I strongly doubt that George Lucas was like, I'm going to reference
TNG.
The first episode of the second season of TNG.
I wanted it to be a reference so bad.
You want everything to be a reference.
I know, I do.
And in particular, you want it to be a 2001 reference.
I do. Oh, yes. My very first note of this episode is this music is very 2001 music. It was, though. It was like kind of classical with like the bomb, 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 bomb type drums. I think that was what reminded me of it.
When Deanna finds out she's pregnant, it turns out the pregnancy is developing super fast.
Yes, it's reverse Benjamin buttoning.
I really liked this scene when they're discussing it. Like, Picard's called a senior staff meeting to talk about it.
Are we going to talk about Riker? Please tell me we're going to talk about Riker.
We're going to talk about Riker, but first I want to talk about how just the way that it was blocked. And how they have Deanna sitting at the other end of the table away from everyone else. No one's sitting near her. And everyone is discussing what to do about this potential alien intruder. Not talking to her, just talking about her.
About her. Well, she has to sit there and listen. And the camera focuses on her face and her reaction.
And they even have discussions about, should we abort it and stuff. And I'm just like, you should probably ask Deanna. It's her body. And she even, after Worf. And I mean, I think Worf has reasonable concerns. Like if an alien presence just suddenly showed up and impregnated somebody, I would say, well, okay, that's a rape baby for one, and it's growing so fast we don't know what kind of threat it could pose to the ship, but it is ultimately her decision.
It really is. And that was highlighted without being an overt, I thought it was good. I do have in my notes, say aborted one more time, Worf, because he says it so many times. But they're focusing on her face while he's saying it. And I really liked that the focus was on her. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. There was a part of me that was like, where is this going? Is this going to turn into some sort of anti-abortion episode? I was concerned for a moment.
I don't think it was. I think I think it's a rather pro-choice episode.
I thought it was too, especially but at first when they all started talking, my heart was a little bit like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. It is still 1988.
Yes, and now let's talk about Riker's reaction.
Oh my God. Okay, so his first reaction is, baby, he can't possibly believe this would happen. And he says something like, this is a surprise. And it's just like, oh, Bill, honey.
And then he goes, I don't mean to be indelicate, but who's the father?
I know. I wrote, I don't mean to be indelicate, but who you doing? He's like, who on this ship is Deanna hooking up with? And yeah, he was so jealous. It felt like jealousy, right? Was it jealousy? It felt like jealousy.
I think it was shock. I don't think it was jealousy, but it is.
Did you think for a moment he thought maybe it was his? Do you think they were maybe screwing around behind the scenes? Because I also thought that might be part of it.
No, I think gauging his reaction, it was very obvious that it could not have been his.
Okay, that's what. Well, when they said last night, then he was like, "Oh, okay. I don't mean to be indelicate," but I think at first he was doing the math in his head. I don't know. I thought maybe he thought it was his.
So Deanna gives birth a day later, a completely painless delivery.
And according to Dr. Not Crusher, it's half betazoid, half human, even though it would be a quarter betazoid, but okay.
Well, I mean, genetically, it's half betazoid, half human because it was an energy being that magically created the being, so that copied Deanna's genetic material. The kid is basically a kind of parthenogenic clone. But she gives birth. She names him Ian Andrew after her dad.
And then says that the labor didn't hurt at all, which, makes everybody become concerned. But yet, while she was claiming it didn't hurt at all, she was panting and barely able to make words. So I was concerned about that.
I mean, I'm sure she's still feeling things down there. It's just not painful. Data was really sweet in that moment.
He was. Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'd be happy to have Data here with me. And Pulaski has to make a dig. He's like, are you sure? I think you need a human touch. And she's like, I'm fine with Data. I also, they brought in security, it's a reasonable concern. But I also like how Riker is just standing out in the doorway.
Peeking in.
He knows Data's there. And she's like, no, she's taken care of. I want to make sure she's okay. I'm just gonna hang out here.
Yeah. I laughed and said, I guess the real father showed up anyway, because the doctor made some snide comment about, well, most fathers are at the birth, which I thought was a weird comment for 400 years in the future, where women might be making choices to not have births with men involved. I have several friends who have had children without a dang man involved at all. So I thought it was a very weird comment that she's not used to delivering babies without the father being there. But then the father was there anyway.
Yeah, she's written as a female Bones, and Bones was always an old-fashioned kind of a guy. He didn't want to be teleported. He doesn't like all this newfangled technology. Yeah. He thinks, sometimes what you need is a swift kick in the ass. So maybe it's a little bit of that, a little bit of old folksy paternalism.
Yeah, I could see that. I think she might have worked better as a character as a man, to be honest. Because if she's trying to be a Bones, some of the things she was saying, I was like, but you're a woman too, lady. I don't know. Maybe I'll get over it and I'll like her more later.
So the pregnancy isn't the only thing that's accelerated. Ian grows at a rapid rate.
Which we were all expecting, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was expecting it. When they came in the room, I was like, well, he's going to be like 10 years old. Yeah, exactly.
And he grows up into the spitting image of Steven Universe.
He does, the spitting image of Steven Universe. I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, believe in Steven.
I haven't seen the show, but
I love
you
Steven
texted me
Universe.
that, and I was just like, oh my god, he does look like him. He's able to speak and everything, and
Yeah, in a really, really creepy way. He looks at the people and says, please don't worry. Everything is going to be okay. And I was like, oh, come on, kid. Like,
so it's obvious that the being that impregnated her is Ian, and still retains the sentience from before becoming Ian.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't explaining his presence here, but he doesn't seem hostile.
He doesn't. And at first I was mad at how maternal Deanna was being after having been pregnant for 20 hours and then had a kid for another 24 or whatever. All of a sudden she's like a soccer mom and taking him to daycare and stuff. And I was like, okay,
she's empathic.
This is weird. And I was like, but then I was like, okay, wait, no, this is Deanna. I have to think about her as like a betazoid, not as a human. She can feel the intentions of the child, feel the intentions of this kid and bringing him up and everything. And I was like, okay, so she can feel that this thing isn't malicious. Otherwise she wouldn't be treating it like it's her child.
Yeah. And that's going to be most of it for that part. Let's talk about the B plot, and that'll wrap back around to it. So the Enterprise is transporting the latest samples from the gain of function research at the Wuhan laboratory.
Yeah, they're just making some plague potions over there. I wasn't 100% sure what was going on, but they were transporting bits of the plague.
Yeah, it was like a virology lab where they were deliberately doing gain of function research. Like I said the Wuhan thing, but like that's literally what they were doing, is they were making it more potent. I think in order to synthesize better vaccines for other versions of the disease.
Oh, okay.
But it also means you have to make sure that this is well contained. Otherwise, it could wipe everyone out because it's such a potent virus. As they're transporting it, they discover that the virus is actually growing inside the containment unit, and there's nothing that they can do to stop it, and they can't just jettison it, because if the pod goes and hits a planet, it'll spread the disease on the planet, or if another ship picks it up, it'll spread it to them.
What about into the sun, though? Couldn't they just find the nearest sun and throw it? My husband was sitting here going, can't they just throw it into a sun?
You would think that they would think of that, but they didn't. But it turns out that they are able to isolate what's causing the growth, and it's a certain kind of radiation that they're able to identify as coming from Ian.
The first second that they say it's growing at an exponential rate or whatever they said, I was like, oh, it's Steven Universe.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah.
And Ian realizes that he is endangering the ship. Mm-hmm. And so he dies.
Yeah, he just dies. He's like, okay, well, I must be going now. I mean, I guess he doesn't really die. He kills the human form that he created to experience humanity through making Deanna pregnant, and then flew off into the wilderness of the space. But still, I thought it was an interesting sacrifice for Ian to choose to make for himself. I don't know. I liked these aliens because they weren't malevolent.
Mm-hmm. I think he probably should have asked Deanna before impregnating her if he wanted to experience humanity.
Yes, yes,
that
absolutely.
Part, that really bugs me. But other than that, he did not have hostile intent. And when he turns back into the Wisty, he goes into Deanna's hand and they have a psychic conversation, and she smiles and cries. Mm-hmm. And then it just flies off into space.
Yeah. That is what, yeah, it was. I mean, yes, I agree. Like, because the pregnancy against her will thing, like, put me on edge from the beginning. But I decided after about 20 minutes to, like, just trust Deanna that she knew what she was doing, because if she thought there was something evil going on with it, I don't think she would have become so maternal and so, like, protective and that kind of stuff. What a hard, traumatic thing to go through, though. All of a sudden you're pregnant and you give birth to a baby and you raise that baby and you take it to take care. And, like,
with puppies.
Then it's just gone. Oh, yes. I wrote down they must have replicated up some puppies, right? Because where do the puppies come from?
No, they have real puppies. There are pets on the Enterprise.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, because there was a cat one time, but that was a part of the story. I've never seen an actual pet, I don't think.
Well, Picard's got his fish in the
he does have
in
the
ready
fish.
room. No,
Yeah.
there are pets on the Enterprise. I mean, there's families, so of course you're gonna have pets.
Yeah, that makes sense. So before all that happens, though, there is that lovely conversation between Guinan and Wesley that I really, really liked.
Guinan always gives the best advice.
The underage kid hanging out in the bar was weird. But
don't worry, they're not serving alcohol. What they're serving is synthahol, which has all of the positive effects desired from alcohol, but can be willed away with a thought.
Oh,
and so
I'm good
it's
with
totally
that.
fine. And also, I don't think Wesley's drinking. Like, they serve up Shirley Temples there too. It's fine.
yeah, because he ends up having a souffle or something. But like, she asks him 3 times if he wants something to drink, and he's like, "You keep asking me," and she's like, "Don't you always do what's expected of you?" Hint, hint, wink, wink. And I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting."
She always drops these just wonderful nuggets of wisdom.
My favorite one she said was, "Give yourself permission to be selfish." I thought, yeah, life advice from the Star Trek bar.
Also, I love 10 forward.
Oh yeah, so what does 10 forward mean?
So it's deck 10 forward of the ship. It's basically the absolute front of the ship, and it's a lounge. And it's so integral to like the DNA of Star Trek that it's weird that it wasn't in the first season, because that's where like people go when they're off duty. People do concerts there. People have birthday parties there. It's it's the hangout
chill
spot.
out place. Yeah. Kind of like how in Battlestar Galactica, when you meet Starbuck and they're like hanging out playing like
poker,
that it sets that like, yeah, we're not always on the bridge. We're not always fighting something. And we do need that in the Enterprise. So it's nice to see that it's here. I didn't know that it was really missing until it was there. And now I'm like, yeah, why haven't we had a place like this? We've had the holodeck, but that's the closest.
Yeah. We didn't really get a proper sense of the community of the ship in the first season. I feel like it felt like the Enterprise was the bridge, and then occasionally they'd go to engineering, and it was just 10 people, and
sometimes into people's individual rooms.
Right.
That was like the closest that we got. But you talked about the cinematography being different, but like I think the whole feel of it was different. Like season 1 feels like we're making a Star Trek, the original series reboot in 1988. These 2 episodes felt a little bit more like we're our own show now, and we're going to show you that we're our own show now. Does that make sense? Like, I just felt like it was a lot stronger, like it was coming on better like footing than the first season, but had the whole first season there to kind of like set it up.
The characters, so here's them when they're not on duty. Here's them doing other things too.
Right.
And let's talk about Guinan, because just immediately they set her up to be a mysterious person, because Wesley's talking. He's like, "Oh, people have said all these things about you. They say you're really old and that you've known Picard forever." And she's like, "Nope, I met Picard when I came on the ship." And then she didn't answer any of his other questions.
Yeah. I know. I wrote, "Oh, there's a mystery here." I'm excited to see if we ever find out. I'm sure we will, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she's around for a long time. Does she go to a different show eventually? Is she on Deep Space Nine?
No. She's only in TNG, although she will be showing up in season 2 of Picard. She was in the trailer for that, and she's in 2 of the movies. But Whoopi Goldberg was friends with LeVar Burton, and when he told her that he was going to be on Star Trek, she's like, "Talk to the producers. I want to be on that show." And after the first season, she never got a call. And so I think like she went up to Gene Roddenberry. She's like, why did nobody ever reach out to me? I told LeVar I wanted to be on the show. And Gene's like, you were serious?
Because she's a pretty big movie star at this point, right? Because like Ghost and like all this stuff has already happened.
She has an Oscar for The Color Purple.
Oh, The Color Purple. Yeah. How did I forget that one? Yeah.
So yeah, like she's at the height of her career at this point, and why would she want to go do a syndicated sci-fi TV show? And she's like, "When I was a little girl, I turned on the TV and I saw Uhura on the Enterprise, and I went running to Mom and I said, 'There's a black woman on TV and she ain't a maid.'"
Wow, how powerful, right? And then she got to be in the show.
Yeah,
that's my new favorite character. Yeah. No, I'm all on board with her. I wasn't sure what to think about her until this first episode. I knew she was coming. I knew she was a character. I've seen the movies a million years ago, so I've seen her be Guinan before. I just don't really... I remember, wasn't she pretty pivotal in the Generations movie?
Generations, yeah, she's a very important character in that.
It's been so long since I've seen them. But yeah, I was really excited. Like, I thought it felt like, oh, wow, they've really found their feet. And I know that we've joked about the beard and stuff, but I think it felt far less of like, we're remaking the original series in 1988, and it feels more like now we're making our own series.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that. So the next episode we're going to talk about is Where Silence Has Lease, which is the second episode of the second season. It first aired on the 20th of November, 1988. It was written by Jack B. Sowards and was directed by Winrich Colby.
So this has a fantastic cold open where it's like on the bridge and everyone seems really nervous, and Picard and Riker and Worf aren't there, and they're talking about, it's like, is Riker going to be okay? And then we cut to the holodeck where Riker has joined Worf in his Klingon calisthenics program. Which
one of the lesser ones, because you wouldn't be allowed to be in on his more personal ones. That's
right. But Klingon calisthenics just means spawning some orc monsters to kill.
Yep, that sounds all right.
And I love the monster design, especially the guy with like the skull face. That looked so cool.
I thought he was cool too. Yeah. I was trying to figure out what he reminded me of. He reminded me of something, but I couldn't think of what it was.
He was like half orc, half skull. Like,
yeah.
And you get the feeling like the makeup artists got to have fun because they're like, oh, this isn't an alien that we could create on the show, but because it's a holodeck program, Worf can just create monsters. We can just have fun and create a cool looking monster.
Yeah, that's true. That's really what it felt like. Now, I will say, because of the cold open and because of Worf saying there's an old Klingon legend about like a nothing monster, I thought the entire episode was going to be the holodeck.
Really?
I thought the whole thing was going to be one of Worf's things that he was doing by himself.
So you thought it was going to be it was an all a dream style ending?
I did, because it felt like it was set up that way, because we have the cold open where Riker and Worf are in there, and then this nothing appears on the screen, and then he talks about an old Klingon legend about a nothing, and then when they have to send an away team, they send who? The same two people who did the holodeck earlier in the episode. They send Riker and Worf, and I was like, this whole thing, is it all a holodeck simulation?
Nope, it was real.
I thought it was, and then when the episode literally ended, I was like, I guess it's not. Yeah, I spent the whole episode thinking it was.
So the episode itself is they find a void in space. And they're like, oh, well, let's take a look at that void. And then the void eats them.
Yes, yeah. And then they have to get out of the void.
Yeah, like they're like, okay, well, we don't have any navigation, but let's see if we can get ourselves out of here. They travel for like a couple parsecs in a straight line and don't seem to be going anywhere, so they drop a beacon, then they head away from the beacon,
and then they're really stupid about the beacon.
Yeah. They loop back around to the beacon, so obviously the void is just keeping them inside it. And then the void has a face.
Then the void has a creepy baby face. I think it reminded me of a baby face because, are you ready? 2001. Because of the creepy baby at the end of 2001, which I still think is one of the scariest things that has ever appeared in a movie, is the creepy fetus baby looking down on Earth at the end of 2001. And it reminded me of that. So I kept calling it the creepy baby face.
Oh, actually, before the baby face, first they encounter a Romulan ship that they're able to destroy with a single photon that leaves no debris. So like, okay, so that was fake. And then another Galaxy-class starship appears.
Their sister ship. I didn't know there was such a thing as sister ships.
Well, any ship of the same class, I would imagine. I think there were like 7 Galaxy-class ships commissioned, so the Yamato would be one of them. It appears, but there's nobody on board. And Worf and Riker beam over to investigate. But it turns out the inside of that ship is like non-Euclidean. Like they try to beam to the bridge, but then they end up in like the corridors. But then they just walk through a door that ends up being on the bridge. But like, wait, we're on like deck 4. It should be on deck 1. And then like one of them goes through a turbo lift, but instead of a turbo lift, it's another bridge.
And there is only one Riker and one bridge.
Yeah, Worf starts getting very mad and like trying to rip open the doors and getting very mad.
And that psychological turmoil played into my theory.
Yeah. Well, and also because at the beginning of the episode, when Worf had defeated the skull monster, like in his battle rage, he like was like turning on Riker. He was about to attack Riker until Riker told him to stand down. So you get the feeling that Worf's a little bit of a rage monster himself and is not fully in control when he gets into that mode. So Riker was like, "You need to calm down, dude. Like, I am not here for calisthenics right now."
And then he has to pull the "I'm your commanding officer, buddy" line too. Like he has to be like, "Hey, I command you to stop." Yeah.
Oh, and O'Brien is the transporter chief. I think he was in the first episode as well.
He was. I wrote O'Brien really big, but we never got around to talking about it. But yes, he was in both episodes, and he had lines, I think, in both episodes. Go O'Brien.
He had lines in both episodes, and he's the transporter chief. I don't think they've given him his name yet. I don't think they've called him O'Brien yet, but he's running the transporter.
Yeah.
And it took him a while, but he's able to beam them back. And once he beams them back, then the face shows up, and his name is Nagilum. He's like a higher form of life that is running lab experiments on them. He wants to see what these little humans are going to do when he does experiments on them, when he opens holes in the void and sees them try to go for it, and then he closes them up and opens up another one elsewhere. And
yes.
Like, okay, yeah, you're toying with us.
Because despite all their rage, they're still just a rat in a cage. Yeah, sorry, I've been waiting to make that joke. Go ahead.
And then Nagilum learns about death.
Yeah. Right after he learns about women.
Right after he learns about women and throws Dr. Pulaski across the room.
But Deanna's standing right there. And he's like, "Oh, you're different than the rest of them," which once again makes me think she's the monster of the week. And I'm like, but Deanna is literally standing right there, space baby. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I was so mad when he killed Haskell.
Yeah.
I was like, why did you have to kill Haskell? I understand you're studying death, you creepy baby face, but why did you kill him? He was just sitting there doing his job.
Picard's response to Haskell's death is like, just that line read has stuck with me forever. "We cannot allow you to do that."
Yeah, there was a lot of like power behind the way he said it.
I love that line. I love just the writing of the line. I love the delivery of it. It's
good.
It's good, and also, like, it's a little, like, Picard is trying to assert authority, but, like, there's nothing he could do. If Nagilum wanted
to kill everybody on the ship, there's no stopping him. Yeah.
Right. But it's still that, he's like, it's a moral claim. Morally, he cannot allow him to do this.
Right. He also, well, I mean, like, morally, because it was on TV, when he asked them to demonstrate how men and women make babies, I was like, "Sir, this is a family show." Like, they cannot demonstrate how that happens. I thought that was funny, though, because he's basically like, "Well, why don't you just do it right here in front of me?"
Yeah.
So did he kind of remind you of like Q coming and meddling with them? But
yes,
there was like less mystery. He was just kind of a malicious, "I'm better than you" kind of alien.
I wouldn't even necessarily call him malicious. I think he just saw them as like ants, like, scientists or like or lab rats. I mean, scientists kill rats all the time and they're not malicious about it. It's just they're running experiments and it's just rats.
Right.
He just, doesn't afford them the same consideration he would afford someone of his type, even though he's able to talk with them. But once he learns about death, he's like, "Oh, I've got to find out. I need to study all the different ways that humans can die. And well, don't worry, it'll only take like a third to a half of your crew."
A third to a half, yeah.
Picard's like, no, I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. I'm just going to blow up the ship.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about the self-destruct option.
It was,
I didn't think, I knew in a million years, obviously, they weren't going to go through with it, but I thought it was an interesting choice.
I don't know that that's the choice that I would have made.
I don't think it's the choice I would have made. I thought it was an interesting, like, let's go straight to the worst possible, like, answer.
That's like being given the trolley problem and your solution is to
nuke the planet from orbit.
Yeah.
No, I get it, because I felt the same thing, but I was excited to see them like use the feature, the self-destruct feature.
I love Pulaski's remark in the briefing room when he says that he's going to blow up the ship. She goes, why do I get the feeling that this was not the time to join this ship?
I know. That was one of the few times I was like endeared to her because I still thought she was going to be the monster. But I was like, yeah, you sure did choose a weird time to. But every episode is a weird time to join the ship.
Yeah. So they set the self-destruct for 20 minutes, and they even have a discussion on how long should we prepare to die for.
Oh, yeah. So let's say, it's you. Let's say you're on a spaceship and you have to self-destruct. How long do you want? Do you want that 20 minutes of red alert while you know it's about to explode? Or do you just want it to be like exploded?
I want it to be instant.
I want it to be instant too. Yeah, I felt the same thing. I thought it was like a pretty cowardly move to make people wait around for 20 minutes.
Although giving it that 20 minutes does give Nagilum a chance to change his mind, and I think that's what Picard
it was important
on.
to the plot. If they had just immediately blown up the ship, it wouldn't have, worked. And obviously there was a couple times that Nagilum tried to like mess around with them. Like there was a point where Jean-Luc is talking to a bunch of people, and Data says Jean-Luc, and I was like, that ain't Data.
Both. It was Troy and Data came to Riker's quarters after he set the self-destruct, because they first Deanna's like, I don't know, I don't think you're making the right choice here, and then Data comes and asks Picard, what is death? They have a brief philosophical conversation about it, but then it turns out these are both Nagilum. He just created avatars of Troy and Data to try and convince Picard to turn off the self-destruct so that he can run his experiments. But Picard realizes it because, they both call him Jean-Luc, and he's like, that kind of familiarity my officers wouldn't give me, even if they're about to die.
Right. So what happens if Deanna needs to go to therapy? Because she is the therapist.
I do think she has a staff. I don't think she's the only counselor on the ship. We just usually don't see the others, so she's got
like a team.
Yeah, probably. So they're waiting. The timer's ticking down. And then when it gets to like a minute left, the void disappears. And they're like, all right, well, let's warp 6 in any direction. Let's just see what happens. And, there's no evidence that Nagilum is still there, but they want to make sure. And so like they wait until like 10 seconds left on the clock. And then Picard shuts it down. And then the computer asks Riker to confirm, and Riker's like, yes, absolutely, 100%, yes, 100%, don't blow us up.
And I thought that was going to be another tell that wasn't Riker. They red herringed me everywhere with this.
Well, it's hard to trust. It's like, okay, well, yeah, the void's gone, but is it really gone? Is he just toying with them? But I think Nagilum's like, all right, no, it's not worth running the experiment if y'all are just going to suicide over it.
Right, exactly, because he's not going to learn anything, and then they'd all just be dead. This episode kind of reminded me of that episode of Doctor Who called The God Complex, Matt Smith episode, where they're like trapped in like a hotel. It also has kind of Shining vibes to it, and every room, there's a room of your greatest fear. And
I loved that episode.
I've watched it so many times because I'll just go watch it as a standalone episode. I think it's so good. It's just really well written. But it reminded me of that. Like they're trapped and they have to find a way out of the nothing, right? And so that part reminded me of it, and I kept thinking about it while I was watching this, because really in reality this was a very interesting episode. The first half of it was kind of boring, but once Nagilum shows up, like all of a sudden you're like, what's happening? Are they going to win? How are they going to get out of this? Like it actually had me interested in where it was going. After kind of a lackluster first half of the episode, I thought it was a little slow.
First half of the episode, you're like, well, this could just be random space events.
Right.
I don't know what's going on. Once you can put a literal face to it, you're like, okay, there was intention in all of this.
Right. The whole episode, everything in the episode was intentional. Whereas when you're watching it at first, you're like, what is happening? And I don't know if they gave me enough intrigue into like caring at first, but once Nagilum shows up, I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm like putting the first half of the episode into it, and I liked it. I thought it was an interesting episode. Does Nagilum show up again?
No.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I thought he would, because they said something like in the future or something, I think. And I was like, oh, maybe we'll see him again.
When we're talking about omnipotent god beings, they're usually one-offs unless they're Q.
Unless they're Q. Okay. That makes sense. Do you think Geordi's gotten more sassy? He had the rat in the cage line, and he said something else.
He had a lot of quips.
He did. He was very quippy. Yeah. And so sassy, I guess, is the word I used. But like he's like, instead of just being like, yes, sir, or whatever, like, and that kind of stuff, he had a more personality, you know?
Yeah. One of his lines was, "Keep the cheese. I just want to get out of the trap."
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought that was cool too.
And I liked that, at the end, once they're clear, it's like, okay, they're gone. But then Picard's in his ready room and Nagilum shows up on his little laptop.
Yeah.
Just to have a brief, denouement where, Nagilum's just like, blah, blah, blah. I don't actually remember what the conversation entailed, but...
I don't either. I think it was just like, see, I'm still here, even though I let you go. Like, I don't remember the conversation being all that interesting.
But it was basically him giving his findings on humanity from his studies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because Q kind of seems like he's studying humanity too, but specifically Picard, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we should probably be getting another Q episode soon. There hasn't been one in a while.
Yeah, we should be getting another Q episode this season.
Okay. You say that like you know that there's one coming.
Well, of course I know what's coming. I'm saying that with a smile on my face because I know the exact one. And
okay.
You're going to like it.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. I'm Ari.
And I'm GayFesh.
And until next time,
live long and prosper.
Thanks for watching.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified when new episodes come out.
We're on Twitter at RestBothWorlds.
Join our Patreon at patreon.com/restofbothworlds for bonus content and hear your name at the end of each episode.